My name's Alyssa.
I'm Barry.
I'm Brady.
And we had physical and mental health. And Zachary was not able to join us today because he wasn't feeling well, so he stayed home. Our first question was, what are some important statistics and data that exist for your issue? Now, because we have essentially two topics in one, physical and mental health, I decided to only focus on 4 things that affect those 2 topics. The first being counseling, mental health, and is there counseling available in the schools? Well, it's not required in Kansas for there to actually be that at any grade level. Followed by that is lack of creative outlets. I don't know about you, but I come from an artist family, and I really go back to art when I feel stressed. I'll do paint and just work with color and work with paper because it makes me de-stress a little bit. And the fact that some schools don't offer that is shocking to me, because only 80% of schools offer it 1 to 2 times a week. Some of them offer it less than that. It's shocking to me that so few. I understand 80% is over half, but to me, that if it isn't 100%, it's few. As you can see, there's different percentages. How this would work is 94% of schools offer music. Some of those schools also offer fine arts. Some of those schools offer dance as well. Some of those offer drama and theater. So there's some schools that don't offer any kind of art. Some schools that offer multiple. For the physical health, I looked at recess because I'm a big advocate for recess. And if you look at the statistic, 26.9 minutes a day for 4.9 days a week. That means some children don't get recess every day. Have you ever seen a child not be allowed to run around at all during a day? I don't think that really works, but some schools have decided to do that. And I think that really affects their physical health, especially at the elementary level. Food, 29.6 million students a day are served by the, I'm sorry.
Free and reduced lunch? Free and reduced lunch?
No, the students that get served lunch at the school. I forget the name of the organization that funds that. I'm sorry. But the average in Kansas for lunch for students at all the age levels is $2.74, which is pretty low. But as some of our classmates have talked about, $2 is the average for kids in poverty to live on each day. So they would receive the free and reduced lunch. Well, that's 30 to 40 cents a meal. So you're telling me that these students then have to spend a third to a sixth of their daily budget on food for one meal. That's a lot, even when it's not costing that much. But then you also have another factor. The food served in schools, although said to be nutritious, I mean, a Lunchable, chicken nuggets, a hot dog wrapped in bacon, is that nutritious? It has food, it has calories, but is it giving them the nutrients, the vitamins that they need to excel in the classroom, for their brain to develop properly?
So the next question was, what are the challenges presented for school communities and their members because of this issue? So on the physical health side, physical activity in schools is massive, not only for the physical benefits, making sure our kids are going to be healthy, but also the mental side, making sure they're engaged and focused while they're in school. Food insecurity and lack of health support is a big challenge for some families. Making sure that a student isn't going to bed hungry, and making sure that they have that meal provided at the beginning of the day to give them a boost. Making sure that we meet these challenges so that our students are prepared and engaged for the day. Another thing is students with underlying health issues can struggle with their education. So, whether this is struggling with pain during the day, whether this is struggling with, having to leave the classroom multiple times a day. One of the big things, my sister has epilepsy, and one of the big things I know with her was absences, like being gone from school a lot, because doctor's appointments, hospital stays, whatever it may be, understanding that those absences are going to be there and being able to work with them. And then from the school side, it's just making sure you're able to meet these needs of the student. It's our job as educators, as school districts, to give the students the opportunity to get an education where they can be successful. On the mental side, the understanding of mental health is becoming more and more common and relevant, but just understanding that they're common, understanding that a lot of the times they happen with our youth, being sure that we can address these and understand that they are going on. And then these students often will struggle with school, whether it's anxiety, ADHD making it rough, social interaction, a host of issues can cause a student to struggle. And then there's a disproportionate number of students with mental health problems that don't graduate. The site I looked at was talking about 3 to 4 times the amount of students that wouldn't graduate when compared to your regular students. And then again on the school side, just making sure you have support in place, making sure you have counseling available, making sure you have school psychologists that are there that can kind of find these underlying issues with mental health. Just making sure that all those are covered and provided for your students.
So how do these issues and challenges affect students, families, and educators? For mental health, students who have mental health issues, they have a harder time understanding things in the classroom, maybe keeping their focus, paying attention to one thing rather than looking all over the room and finding some random things to focus on rather than listening to what the teacher has to say. Untreated diagnosis of mental health can cause permanent damages. These kids at young age learn ways to cope with them, and maybe those coping mechanisms aren't focusing on the teacher, they're focusing on outside the window, focusing on something random, and then those things carry out with them throughout their time in education, and they don't find ways to cope and find ways to fix them and focus on different things. Families, when students have mental health issues, families try to find ways to cope with them, but sometimes that can cause unneeded stress in the family and in the home, and causing strain on those relationships because maybe the students don't understand that their family is trying to help them, but it doesn't seem like they're trying to help. For educators, not very many districts train teachers to understand and how to solve these issues with their students, so they're not able to help those students, but they may notice it, but they just don't know how to fix it or how to give the student their help that they need. For physical health, lack of physical activity during the day can cause the students to have issues focusing or paying attention in the classroom. Families, children learn habits in their families, so if a family isn't very active, the student isn't going to be very active because they're following what they know from their parents. And educators, they have a hard time trying to keep students focused because they have a lot of energy that they need to get out to be able to focus, and they're having to spend extra time trying to get the students under control or in a place where they can focus more on the topic that the teacher's trying to teach. Mental health starts in the brain. It's a way that many different traumas or events can alter the way that the student's brain functions, and these changes they can cause permanent change on the way that the brain puts or tries to solve situations. So if a student goes to something that's like a trauma of a death or something, those students are going to probably go through some sort of depression, and without solving that, they're going to have a harder time being able to focus, and that's going to alter them for most of the time in education. There really is no defined time or place where an event can happen. It just there's random events that could happen that would change that. Some of them are things that can go through hereditary things. So if a family member has anxiety and depression, a student is more likely to have anxiety and depression as well. For physical health, only 30% of students ages 6 to 17 participate in physical activity while at school, and lack of physical activity has been known to cause issues for um, focusing, because they're wanting to get up and do things and run around and move. But being in a classroom setting where you're having to sit in your desk and listen to a teacher talk all day, it's harder for them to be able to focus on that when they're wanting to do other things.
Alrighty, so some of the failures of the school community. So only 6 to 8% of schools provide the recommended daily physical activity. Some districts do not provide breakfast. Not only will this help with performance, but it also will decrease tardiness. On the mental side, research shows the definitive best route is a whole school approach, making sure that everybody is on board, staff, administration, all get the proper training. But however, this is rarely implemented, and a lot of the times there's just not enough resources to make sure that this occurs and is in place.
And our last slide, what can teachers do to better address these issues and better meet the challenges? For mental health, I say you should integrate social, emotional, and character development standards into your curriculum. They're relatively easy, they fit in very nicely, and you can help the children through teaching them how to control their own emotions and deal with them in an appropriate manner. Secondly, create creative outlets. Those social, emotional, and character developments, they go very well into art, so that you express your emotions in your art, and it can be very well integrated into the curriculum. For physical health, you can put large motor activities, and do yoga, and do freeze tag, or wiggle moments for the preschoolers or elementary age level. For the high schoolers, I would recommend just getting them up and stretching at the very least, and it will help them rejuvenate their mind to get refocused again. Food, advocate for better quality. As teachers, we have a great platform to advocate for our students, and this is one of the things that we should. And those are our sources.